I'm going to do a quick intro just so that people who might not know me can get to know me and you. So obviously, I'm Christina Foxwell. Foxwell, no, it's Foxwell. I'm the CEO of Ignite Purpose, and I like introducing myself as a human. I'm a human being. I'm a mom. I'm a granny. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. And I am me. And I started this practice 12 plus, almost 13 years ago. And I'm absolutely passionate about people and performance, and that incredibly beautiful balance that has to be taken to get one to connect to the other. I have a background in HR, in performance, in sales directorship, in leadership. But as I said, I'm just me. So I'm so thrilled to have you with me today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I've got a beautiful intro. I need to tell people who you are.
Fantastic.
Okay. So I had the pleasure of working with you a few years back when you were the general manager of Clorox Australia.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with you the first time, and there was just this amazing connection that we had because we understood the same things. It felt so good. Now, in your career, you've been defined by your ability to drive business growth, inspire high-performing teams. And I've seen this as we've supported you with some of the, new people that's joined. They all want to fight. I want to meet Shaunte. I want to work for her. It's been inspiring. Currently, of course, you're the CEO of Advanced Cosmeceuticals Skin Group.
Yeah.
But your impact stretches way beyond this. You've led organizational areas in places like Cliff Bar's company, Clorox company. And have you been at McKinsey?
No, I've not been at McKinsey. No.
I'm not going to put that out there.
No.
Okay.
But a lot of great people have, but I have not.
And I can see you lead organizations. That's your gift. People and organizations. I think what makes you extraordinary is your ability to look at business and then to connect people.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I have been very fortunate to lead some really fantastic businesses and brands and groups of people within businesses in my career. And I think about not only the numeracy of it, not only the sort of the business aspect of trying to get to the right sales and profit growth, but also the people. So each individual, create an environment where they feel like they can bring their best every day.
And I've seen that. I saw when you went back to the US, the heartfelt disappointment that your team had because they just wanted you. So I can see that. But one of the things that defines you is change. You're a change maker. And you've done that throughout your career, and your heart is what defines you. So now I've said so many nice things, right? So this is who you are. So why don't we start off with something fun?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, Shaunte, in your journey as a leader, do you have a song that's your go-to song that you go, I love this song because it just puts me back on my feet, inspires me? Is there something?
Well, look, I'm a big fan of R&B music.
Okay.
And Alicia Keys I love. And so when you asked me this question, the song that came into my head was Girl on Fire. And for those who don't know that song, it's like a big sort of belty anthem song, and it's a bit cathartic as you sing it.
I'm singing it in my head now.
Releases some of the things that may be going on in your head. But when I think about it, not only does it feel good to sing it, despite whatever type of day that I might be having, but it also, I think, is pretty indicative of the type of journey that my career has been on. When I started out my career, I wouldn't have thought that I was going to end up in a role like I'm in today. But that song tells a story of a woman kind of doing her best, pushing boundaries, continuing to care for not only, what she's got going on outside of the home, but inside of the home, and, just really being on fire. So that's my theme song.
How do I get that out of my head now?
Put it on your Spotify
I
and
am going to listen to
put
it
it on
after our
repeat.
session. So I've got one.
What's yours?
The Greatest Showman, This Is Me.
I love it.
Because part of what's really helped me rise as a leader is being brave, being authentic, not being scared to show people who I am. And also, it's a belting out song.
Yeah.
I mean, when I mentioned this earlier, when I've really had one of those days where my worth has almost been exchanged, or I gave it away accidentally, my take back moment is singing "This Is Me."
Those belting songs, they help a lot with those days, I'll tell you that.
Don't they just? Because what makes us human is going through these moments. And I think showing up and being able to sing with our whole heart just brings it all back, right? You can see those people when you drive past them in traffic and they're giving it a good go. Have you seen that?
Yes.
They're singing. It's remarkable. I
That's
think
right.
music is healing as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So I've got some statistics because this is obviously celebrating International Women's Day and its gender disparity in leadership, pay equity, and career progression in Australia. I will say this, I landed in Australia 17 plus years ago. And I remember attending a conference where Richard Branson was speaking. It was a business chicks thing in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked women who want to be on a board to stand. 5 in this room of about 300 women stood. And I was like, what? There's no other women standing? Why? Why would you not stand? Why would you not dream big? Why would you not see? I think it was many things, and I've come to really dig into that in my role here. And each country is different, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm going to share a few things. Sometimes I don't think we feel we can.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. I've stayed home. My responsibility is with my children. There is no right or wrong to that.
No, absolutely not. But there's no right or wrong to that. I do think, what looks like people giving as much as they can be very different for different people. It can also be very different for the same person during different times of their life. And so I think that, when I think about building a career, I had a great mentor who said to me, great careers are not made in increments. They're made by some bold moves.
Yes.
And so finding ways when those bold opportunities present themselves, or when someone shares something with you that might scare you a little bit,
Yes.
Finding ways to say yes more often. It doesn't mean that every opportunity is something you say yes to, but finding ways to say yes more often.
Just as you said that, and we're going to go into our stories now, but when I got tapped on the shoulder for my first big leadership role, I didn't want it. I was like, you said, what? No, I've got a little baby. I'm not going to do that. And then they said, but you're doing the job anyway. You're helping the people anyway. Can't you just step into it? And I did it on condition I could still keep my clients.
Yeah.
And they said, you can't do both. I said, I will. And I did.
Watch me work.
Thank you. Watch me. But you've got to walk through those opportunities when the door opened. And it was opened by a female managing director who's now my business partner in our global organization. And she guides me with financial decisions.
Yeah.
I think
what an opportunity. What a great, yeah.
I didn't think I was right. I would never have even asked for it. But I was doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, here's some stats. It's quite scary, actually.
22%
22% of CEOs in Australia are women only. Okay, that means fewer than 1 in 4 top leaders are female. Here's another thing. Women hold 42% of management positions, but representation just goes all the way down the more senior it goes. On boards, women hold 34% of board seats, but it's kind of stalled a bit over the last 12 months. There are only 9% of women in senior leader executive roles, CEO roles in construction and mining, compared to 44% in health and education. Okay. So I like this last sentence. There is a pipeline that is still leaky without deliberate action. It's interesting, hey?
It is. I mean, I look at this and, as someone who is fortunate enough to be in one of those positions of power and influence in Australia, I think it points out a couple of things. One, that our work is not done, and number two, how important it is to lift others as you climb. To create those opportunities, to open those doors for others who may not, as you said, that opportunity was presented to you, like you didn't see it in yourself, but that managing director did, and she tapped you on the shoulder and she said, "No, you're already doing this. Like I believe, implicitly she's telling you, I believe that you are capable of formally taking on this role, this opportunity that." Frankly, you're already easing into on your own, and there's something really powerful in that. And I think those of us throughout positions and experience in Australia, the importance of helping to develop talent, and opportunities for others. I think that's the way you get to stronger numbers across this in future years.
Absolutely. I work with quite a few female CEOs, and I have no issues with men, by the way. I have male CEOs that I support too. But one of the few things I've seen with these female CEOs like yourself and the Nell Hales, I can kind of name them, is you've opened doors for people to step through.
Yeah.
It is their choice. Okay, do you want to look at the pay gap?
Let's do it.
Okay, it's 21%. Okay, meaning women earn on average $28,000 less per year than men. Okay, it has improved, but it's still not where it should be. And of course, in the financial sector, it's even worse. I experienced this. I was brought on as a senior leader for a consulting business, my last exec position. And because I looked after medium-sized organization as my remit across Australia and New Zealand, my colleagues who were working in the enterprise space were able to stay when we traveled in the Crown. I had to stay in the Quest.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I was absorbing in my team as much of the head office costs, percentage-wise for my business, as they were. It was insane. And it was a little bit frustrating, but I didn't realize it at first because I never do. I'm just one of those whoop, whoop. But I mean, have you seen this?
Look, I think what I'm glad to see here is that the pay gap improvements over the course of the last decade. But I do think that there are ways, both I guess explicitly and implicitly, that the pay gap shows up, and equal work for equal pay should be the way that we approach compensating individuals. And this just tells us that we've got a ways to go, a long way to go in order to get there.
I just think perfectly said. Before I left Africa, I was earning a lot more compared to men in the same position, but only because I was commission based and we were delivering outstanding results. It's fascinating. It's one that will continue challenging us, I think, as a society. Here's some barriers I've got. So I'm going to run through them. Unconscious bias of stereotypes through a male lens, making it harder for women to be promoted. The broken rung, they're less likely to be promoted to their first management role, which blocks the leadership pipeline. Motherhood and care responsibilities. I think this is a big one.
Yeah.
Lack of mentors and sponsors. I've seen women being harder on women than men on women, which is a tragedy because we should be standing next to each other. Toxic work cultures, where women face higher scrutiny, microaggressions, exclusion from leadership networks. These are just some of the statistics we've pulled together.
Yeah, look, I think I want to call out the number 4 here, the lack of mentors and sponsors, and I think it's so important I think it's mentors and sponsors are so important to sort of drive change in this area. And I have had fantastic and very effective mentors and sponsors that were men, and also that are women as well. And so, importance of figuring out how to be a great ally, regardless of gender, I think is important. And and also knowing the difference between a mentor and a sponsor as well. So, mentor can come from any organization. They can come from any part of life. It's someone who's really looking to help to champion you and your growth, to support you as sort of a whole person of where you want to go. Whereas the sponsor is something a little bit different. The sponsor is someone who is advocating for you in the room where your company is making decisions, and they're able to do so when you are not in the room. So the sponsor is the person who is making sure that your name, your qualifications, your experience, what you bring to the table is being brought into the conversation at the right time, at the right moment. And you can have lots and lots of mentors. I think a couple of key sponsors, maybe even one key sponsor can be
just need one.
The thing that makes the difference, really. Sponsors are harder to find, but they really are able to unlock growth if you're able to achieve that.
I love that. That to me is so powerful. And thank you for pulling that out, because I think that's what we forget. We do need internal sponsors to wedge the door open.
Yes, that's right.
We do, because they believe in us, and they can actually, I've sat around an executive team table, which wasn't mine, because often we go and sit to help leaders play nice. And I watched them go through the 9 boxes and actually negotiate their top people. And it was amazing to see how they were pushing the people that they were sponsoring, and they had very clear reasons why.
Yep.
And I think more and more people should look for them and ask for them. But we should be willing to do that for the people that support us, or not support us. Let me reframe that. That show the capability to deliver the outcomes the organization is needing.
Yeah. Sponsorship is so based on performance, like history and track record of performance, because essentially it's that individual putting their reputation,
I'm putting my name on
credibility on the line to say, no, I believe that this person belongs in this arena, and here's why, and here's what I think they're going to do. So they're putting a lot more skin in the game in that respect.
I love that. So do you want some success stories?
Yeah.
Okay. Women now hold 37% of ASX 200 board seats from just 8 in 2009.
That's impressive.
Isn't that impressive?
Growth stat, yeah.
40/40 Vision pledge. Companies signing up to the 40/40 Vision have committed to 40% women in senior leadership by 2030 and are already seeing improvements. The public sector leadership, the Australian public sector has achieved gender parity in senior leadership, proving that change is possible. And pay gap transparency. More companies are now tracking and acting on their pay gaps, with 75% of those conducting audits to take action to close the disparities. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of success stories there. I think, there's the sort of the business case
Yes,
as well, right? It's yes, these advancements look and feel quite good, but we also know when you have people in the room who are able to voice a different opinion, diverse boardrooms tend to make better decisions.
I do.
You tend to be more creative, et cetera. So we know that there's actually a benefit of having different points of view at the table that are in a situation where those points of view are actually heard and considered and making a final decision. Um, and so, not only is the success stories here impressive, but these companies that have taken this on, it's not just about the pledge. I have to imagine, based on my own experience, that they're also seeing the positive impact of that kind of throughout the organization. Again, through, better decision making, just considering additional points of view that might otherwise be a blind spot in a room where where people are very much the same.
Yeah. And I will say that I think that women need men too. It's not just men needing
Absolutely.
women, and that's exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yep. Goes both ways, for sure.
Now, this is my last one. Okay. So, what needs to happen next? I think every organization out there, so if there's senior leaders watching, they should aim for 40-40-20 leadership balance. I think that would be amazing. Close that pay gap. Um, Pay people on their qualifications, their experience, and what they're going to bring to the role. Fix that broken rung. Yeah. Support women in their career growth. A little bit of flexibility goes a far way. And actually, some men take on a lot of responsibility when their partner, female partner, is, or even male partner, is at, it's so this whole thing around career growth and family flexibility, I think, is important. And then make workplaces inclusive.
Yeah. Look, I think there's, these are, when we think about policies, and I have to start with saying every workplace is different in terms of what it
Absolutely.
requires. So there's no single solution that fits for every organization. So every organization is gonna look and think about this differently.
Yes.
But what I like about what you said is that, it's not just about making this better for women. When we make the environment better, with women in mind, it actually makes it better for everyone, and it's better
It
for
does.
families, right? It's better for people being able to take the mental break that helps them to be more creative. Um, this is not just, it's sort of all reaching. And when I go back to where I started of it being important to create an environment where every individual feels like they can bring their best, I think all of
Yes.
this plays into it. Um, and again, that what their best is, again, might be different at different life stages, different across individuals, but where workplaces are listening, they're willing to accommodate, they're willing to
Mm.
adapt, to number one, what the organization needs to be successful, and number two, what the people in it
Yes.
need in order to be able to bring their best.
Beautifully said, because that's inclusivity. And I think what I'm just love from what you're saying is, and it's something I believe in, is we create the environment for people to flourish, and the people that want to be there and believe in what we do flourish.
Yeah, yeah. What they do with it, what people do with it is up to them, right? So, you create the environment, and then you got to expect people to perform. Um,
And that's not. I think that's an interesting concept which we need to explore on another day. But
that's a whole nother
I'm going to
discussion.
shut my mouth now because I want to ask you some questions. Okay, that was fun. Oh, there's one more. this is the final slide. Um, it's not just the right thing to do, it's smart, which you've already said. That whole um, different voices around the table is incredibly powerful. And I think it's all of our responsibilities to make it happen.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely it
all right, so Shaunte's story. How exciting.
is.
I have marked a few questions. I have so many questions, but I've got to behave myself because I just want to dive into this. Can you take me back to a defining moment in your career when you faced significant resistance as a female executive? And how did you navigate it?
Yeah, it was my first time managing a group of people. So I was often in my career, often a bit younger than average, often one of few women in the room, often one of few, if only one woman of color in the room.
Mm,
And so there's a lot of armor that I built up around wanting to fit in with this, very male dominated, or what I thought this vision of leadership was. And, once I was leading a team, I was a leader, and I needed to needed to show up in the way that I thought I needed to emulate. And I actually got pretty significant significant negative feedback from the people that I was managing. I also found that it was that my team was sort of hiding things from me as well, right?
mm,
And that neither of those were helping me to do my job well.
yeah.
And and so that was a moment that I had a bit of a reflection. I was very fortunate enough at the time that I was able to work with an executive coach,
Yeah.
and that coach said to me that, look, there's, your ability to see patterns is fantastic. You've got, all of the financial acumen, all of that stuff is all tight. You need to work on transparency and vulnerability. And that's what we're
Ooh.
going to work on. And I was like, this is not what I need to be a leader. That's not part of the toolkit that I've, that I thought I needed to develop. And that was really challenging for me,
Mm,
because transparency and vulnerability in in the very in the very respect, like it's risk, and it's the risk of pain, it's the risk of rejection, it's the risk of, that's all I
exposure.
saw. That was all I saw.
Exposure.
As they were telling
Yeah.
me, like, transparency, probably like, no, 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 wait, I'm used to being one of few or one of only. Like, if you tell me to be more vulnerable, like, I'm in an environment where I'm already, kind of, armored up to feel like I could fit in. And and that was probably now about 13 years ago that I started working
Mm,
with Coach on that. And I will just say I still work on transparency and vulnerability now. I think it's something you always work on. You always continue to figure out how to do better, how to make it show up in your day-to-day practice. But at the time, I took some risks and said, like, what does it look like for me to show up like me, not show up like what I think the picture of leadership should look like. And that meant speaking a bit differently, and that meant interacting with my employees a little bit differently, and asking them about, or revealing things about myself in the workplace that I was like, no, 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 I should keep these things outside, because these are the things that it wasn't the same sort of hobbies that I had outside of work that my male counterparts did, right? So it's like I wasn't talking about golf and these sorts of things. I was talking about cooking, and I was talking about things that I like to do that might not necessarily be seen as again, prototypical leader. But as I started to, and that coach told me, he said, pick one area and decide, and just practice in that one area in terms of bringing that to bear. Like, whether it's like, hey, I'm okay to talk about my family, or maybe I'm not okay to talk about my family, or I'm okay to talk about this hobby, but not this. And And we worked on that for a while, and I remember it feeling really uncomfortable for me to, sort of um, revert sort of the story that I had told myself that,
Mm.
leadership looks like this. And but when I showed up that way, actually the individuals I work with, they responded very, very favorably because I was like a real
Yes.
person.
You were
And
you.
I was,
Yeah.
and I made mistakes, and I was willing to admit when I said, you know what, I thought this, but you shared this piece of information with me, and now you've changed my mind. That's not a failure, that's an evolution. Or I did this, here was the outcome, that didn't work. Okay, so here's what we're going to do next. So just naming, naming these things that, broke down this wall of perfectionism and, this armor around a certain very rigid type of leadership. And, people know when you're
I do.
when you're showing up in a way that's you, or when you're putting on airs. And I found that people responded so significantly better to it, that it became a bit of um, a unique superpower of mine, right? It's like, well, I could kind of get to people in a different way that, that others couldn't. And that ended up being something that I could leverage, not only to be a better, mentor and sponsor to people, but
Yes.
also a better business leader as well, because I was able to get, information, and people were willing to share things with me that helped me to make better decisions, at the end of the day.
Because they were trusting you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's a question. Because I call that our Ninja Barbie suits. How do women realize they're wearing the Ninja Barbie suit? Because once you've surrendered the suit, it will jump on you every now and again.
Yeah.
Um, but we can see the suit on others, but others might not see the suit on themselves.
Yeah.
What do you think are some ways for women to recognize when they are wrestling with being who they are?
Look, I think this is where I think relationships are really important, because um, I think as a woman and as a female leader, I've gotten used to calling it out in someone else. You have to have a foundation of trust and all of that below that, but to just, okay, but what's really going on? Like, you don't have to do that with me. Like, let's break that down, and for someone to tell you, um, that number one, they see that you're doing it, and number two, that by doing so, they think you are missing an opportunity,
Mm.
you're being held back in some way. And I think that has to come from someone that you know and trust. It has to come from a
Mm.
place of love,
Mm. Oh,
and
beautifully put.
compassion, because, anyone who does that really well, they've developed it over years, right? Like, we don't just wake up one day and,
Uh,
and figure that out. We've developed that over patterns, right? Patterns of um, years and years of practicing it, right? I think the other thing that one can do, if they hypothesize, or if they want to know, whether they are, interacting in that way, is actually that same coach I talked about had me do a couple of exercises, and he said one of them was ask for feedback, which sounds
mm.
very scary, but in this transparency and vulnerability journey, it's really important to do. And it's not the ask for feedback that, like, hey, do you have any feedback for me? And wait 5 seconds and then say, okay, great, fine, I'm doing everything great. Like, just move what, but to genuinely
Sit
ask the
in it.
question, um, ask it of your direct reports, ask it of peers, ask it of people who are also more senior to you, and ask it in a way that invites a genuine response. Not, do you have any feedback for me? But the question is, what are things that you think I can do differently to serve you better?
Beautiful.
And so it allows, it precludes that, yes, there is something that I can do to help to be better for you.
Yes.
And I want you to share that with me. I'm inviting for you to share that with me. And it also puts, me in the asker of the question, like puts a bit of vulnerability out there to say, like, I know I'm not perfect. And I want you to tell me what those opportunities are for me to grow. Um, it's a obviously that one's a behavioral shift. Like you could do that tomorrow. Find a way to ask that question in a way that feels authentic to you, but ask it in a way that invites a response, a genuine
Yes.
response,
Yes.
that indicates that you're open, that indicates that you're willing to change, that you know that you're not perfect. When you start to hear those things back, well, so I said the first time you ask it, the first time I remember asking
You're
it,
so scared.
I was so scared. And I feel like the person I asked to tell me, they were scared too. They were like, what is this? Is this a trap? Like, and I made it, and they weren't ready to answer it on the spot,
Yes.
but I said, look, I want you to think about it, and I'm going to come back to you, and I would love for you to give me some ideas. And I'd gone back to the person, a couple days later, and they had some really thoughtful things to share. So it got around that was, when Shaunte took you out to coffee, and that she was going to ask you those questions. So then my team at the time, I had about 30 people on my team. It got out that, that was the thing I was going to ask, or one of the things I was going to
Yes.
ask. And so they started to prepare for it. And then, when they start to realize that you're not, that you mean what you say, and you make change when you're being asked, when you ask for those bits of feedback, then they get more bold. And they start to tell you what's really going on,
Don't
and
they
things that
just?
make up, yeah, and you start to learn, and again, being able to support your team in a really deep and authentic way that's rooted in trust.
I do love it. And then I have one more question. There's a fear that when I'm authentic, people won't think I'm credible. Let's just blow that one out the water, shall we?
They're very different things.
Mm.
So credibility, logic, all of that, like for most people in positions and executives I've ever met, like the credibility is not a question at
Mm.
all. The people don't last very long in organizations if they're not continually learning or have developed some level of mastery in what they do.
Yes.
And so to equate credibility and authenticity is, it's a fallacy. I'm not saying I don't understand why it happens,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's a fallacy to connect those things. We all know brilliant people who show up in unexpected packages and things like that. So I think you have to put in the back of your mind that like your credibility is not being questioned. And I am one that would say be excellent. Like I always measure myself against the bar of excellence, and even if I'm whether I'm the best in the pack or the worst in the pack, even if I'm the best in the pack, I'm saying, okay, yeah, okay, I might have been better than this group of people, but was it excellent? Right? So
Mm.
I'm always measuring against the bar of excellence. That doesn't change. But the package you show up in and how you do so, like people feel it if you're doing it in an authentic way. And if you're empathetic to them as well.
Mhm. If
Yeah,
you see them and you're a human being with love,
yeah,
it changes the world.
absolutely.
That was powerful. Okay, so now I know you've got a few questions to potentially ask me. So
Yeah,
the floor is yours. You can ask me
I
anything.
would I would love to hear about how you impart vulnerability, this theme of vulnerability, which is kind of a atypical word in a business coaching setting. How do you impart vulnerability to groups of organizations that need to change?
The first thing I do, and it's been a big lesson. Vulnerability is not what I say to you. It's the energy I create when I am with you. It's the openness and the love I bring into a moment with you.
Yeah.
It's my ability to see you for who you are, not for who you aren't.
That's beautiful. And how do you get to that? How do you get to that trust so quickly to be able to get there? It must be challenging as someone who's outside of an organization, dropping in to be able to develop trust quickly.
Look, I'm still human, so I can, as much as I can smell love, I can smell fear. Um, and the power is in me, like it is in everyone. If I arrive and I want to be liked, I will fail. If I arrive knowing who I am and wanting to support the organization to be the best they can be, by simply being myself, I won't fail as much.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest learning. As soon as I try and be liked, no.
And then was there a specific moment in your personal or professional career that you think uniquely positioned you for the type of work that you do?
Maybe it's where I come from. So I grew up in a pastor's house, and I'm probably the one that's most like my dad. And I said to him, I want to study to be a minister because I love people. I was always arranging things. I was his music director. I have a deep sense of spirituality, a connection to God, and a deep love for people. Little did I know in my journey that people would show me how the full force of judgment and separation. But my dad said to me, no, you can't go to Bible school because girls don't do that. You need a husband. I was very frustrated by that response because he'd never told me girls don't do that before.
That's a big thing.
It's a big thing. But I think that's where I was uniquely built to do the work I do today.
Yeah.
Because I saw my dad treat people with such love and compassion, even when he got hurt in the process. I saw him cry on more than one occasion when people resigned out of our church because they didn't like the way he said something. Or, I saw such real fragility in leadership as I watched him. And then, of course, because I've gone through this whole process of just being a little bit weird and different, I think my whole life, maybe where I came from, there's stories to that, but I think I have a passion for people. I was willing to learn, and I got broken out from the inside. It wasn't just what I knew. Like 10 years ago, they introduced me to Brene Brown, and I loved it. I just didn't know how to do it because something in me started going, I need to get out. It's not what you know, Christina. Nobody gives a shit. Sorry for the word. It's who you are. But I was so hard on who I was that I went, but no one will love who I am. I don't even like it.
Oh.
I don't like my story. It follows me around like the scarlet letter. So it has to be what I know, not who I am, because who I am to me is shameful. And then I got to that point where my son needed to heal because he was suffering from tremendous being bullied, etc. And the therapist told me, until I grow and heal, he won't. Catalyst for change. When you get told that your Ninja Barbie suit is making your child sick.
Yeah.
and you're the answer to help him be well, and you don't want your child to commit suicide.
Talk about a catalyst for change. Wow.
Talk about
Yeah.
the Humpty Dumpty falling off the wall,
Yeah.
because Humpty Dumpty was jumping on and off the wall thinking, oh, that's vulnerability. Oh, I could do that. And I tell you, Shaunte, it was so painful. And then it's taught me such love because, and I still wrestle with loving my story. I think we all do, who I am. Um, but I've taken one thread at a time and loved the thread versus trying to look at the whole pattern
Yeah.
and love the pattern. And as I've loved the threads, I've given more love and compassion to other people's imperfections, even if it scares me.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
You did answer my question quite thoroughly. It's amazing how, you know, all the things that we experience. So we can often think about, you know, the work we do on ourselves um, outside of work as outside of work. But
Absolutely.
everything that's happening outside of work follows you in the door. You don't leave that stuff at the door. When you try to leave it at the door, that's when you get the, you know, the armor that gets put up, and people know that it's not authentic. And you know, I just appreciate how much how you've shared, you know, how you've shared like this. There's a really significant event where you say, no, I have to think about this. I have to address this. I have to figure out how to love me.
That is hard.
It is.
That is hard. If we had to ask the majority of people out there to write themselves a love letter, it wouldn't happen easily. If we had to ask a leader to write themselves a letter to forgive themselves for being imperfect in a moment where they thought chasing this vision was the right thing to do and it didn't turn out the way they wanted it to, and people might have got hurt and the organization might not have achieved what they thought it would be hard, but it is the only way to growth.
Yeah.
It is not saying that your decisions were the best. It's saying you did the best you could with what you thought you had in that moment.
Yeah.
And you cannot guarantee everyone showing up the way you might have. And if you're not brave to learn, we would never have growth. We would
Yeah.
never have new ways of working. We would never see change. But in those moments of being such an imperfect leader, the biggest gift you give yourself is grace.
Yeah. That's something I definitely continue to work on as well. Just getting that, reminding balance, you know, the grit that we often have on a day-to-day basis with the grace that's needed, both grace for myself and grace for others as well. You know, we push so hard, and humans can do quite a bit. Humans can do a lot. I'm often, you know, just so pleasantly surprised by what people can do when they come together behind a common goal that's clearly articulated and they know their role in it. But then there's also a limit to that, right? They're also humans, and so they can't run that way forever, and they've got to have time to recharge, and you know, and they've also got to have be able to balance that with the other things that sort of give them joy and give them power and give them energy, and you know, continuing to actively, right, make time for that for myself and for my team is something I continue to work at.
So you asked me a powerful question before everyone arrived, and you said to me, "What did you do this weekend?" or "How was your weekend?" And immediately I went, "Well, I did work," which I did do yesterday. But the day before, I spent time with my husband, and I held his hand, and we went for breakfast with his parents, and we went for a pub early dinner thing. And I did my tapestry while watching a TV program, which is one of my
That's
greatest
great.
fun things to do. I love doing tapestry. I have so many tapestry that are unframed. John's going, oh, this is what you do. But it's for me, the art of creation allows relaxation. I don't have small children anymore. I have my cats. And then I saw my grandchildren actually on Saturday morning. I did. And they give me such joy. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. So I'm going to give that to you now because we're inspiring women to show up. Um, but let's tell them the real stuff. Like, what did you do for yourself this weekend?
Yeah, look, I I have a daughter who's 12, and I have a husband, and so there's often, lots of requirements of things that we've got to do on the weekends, sport and et cetera. So, um, we did all of those things, but we also did have a few moments alone, just sort of as a family. Just, there's some things, some shows we like to all three of us watch together. It's like you try to find that perfect balance where there's like the shows that are age appropriate for the kid and that the parents still like. And so we do those. We try to protect that time. My daughter and I both really like to cook, and so we often will cook together. So we did a big curry together that we made, which was really lovely. And then I got a little time to myself, a hobby that I like. I also row in my spare time, and I and my boathouse had a boat maintenance day, and so I spent about 4 hours on Sunday, maintaining the boats that we use on a regular basis, and it was, it's physical labor, and it's not the most glamorous thing, but it is a great time to, it was a great time to be able to, number one, it was just me. It was a hobby that's just for me, to connect with others in the community at that boathouse. I really like to have tasks every so often that have a great beginning, middle, and end, because oftentimes, so much of the work I do in business, it feels like, there are these projects that kind of roll on for a long period of time, and it's hard to feel sometimes that you're like, oh, yes, I've ticked that off, I'm accomplished on that, I'm done. So sometimes it's quite nice to be like, I'm going to take apart this part of this boat, I'm going to clean all the parts, and I'm going to put it back together. And so it was very nice to have that time as well. And it just gave me a moment that was just mine, and talking with people that I like.
Okay, so we've got 4 minutes left.
Mm.
I'm going to stop sharing, right?
Okay.
I always love talking to you. We have such great moments of
We
thinking.
do. We do.
Um, Give me two insights for women to choose to rise.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I think the first thing is to figure out how to say yes more.
Mm.
So in your journey, there will be opportunities that come your way. And and if you are in a position to create opportunities for others, please create those opportunities. But when those opportunities are there and you're the recipient of them, it can be very easy to feel like I just want to, stay where I'm comfortable. But if you're in a position where you really want to grow, and we want those stats to look different 10 years from now than they do today, I think every person who's, watching this webinar, is on this call, have to find ways to say yes more often.
Yes.
It doesn't mean we don't evaluate opportunities and we don't say, hey, this one is not for me, but there should be a time at which you feel a little uncomfortable of taking on new opportunities. That'll be the only way that those stats look dramatically different um, tomorrow than they do today. So find ways to say yes more. That's number one. The second thing is around lifting as we climb. So for those who are in positions of power and influence, and by the way, we all are
Yes, we are.
in ways large or small. Identify those other people that are around you that you see the spark in them that maybe they don't see.
Mm.
Um, and it could be positive in terms of like, hey, I'm going to open this door for you, or it could be that you've developed a basis of trust with them, and you need to tell them like, hey, you're showing up in a way that's actually holding you back, right? And so, let's practice. If you're willing, let's practice some other ways of showing up. So that one is around lifting as a climb. So say yes more often and lift as you climb. Those would be the two pieces of advice I would have for the team today, the group today.
I love that because both you and I were lifted.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Call out one or two leaders that lifted you up.
Oh, well, look, I would be remiss without mentioning a couple of really significant. I had the opportunity to work directly for two CEOs who are both women,
Mm.
who I think I would credit significantly um, with my confidence, my capabilities, and setting in the road. So Linda Rendell, who is the CEO of Clorox Company. I've known Linda for over 20 years, and she's an incredible human being, and is one of the smartest people I've ever met. And so she's been really influential in me getting to where I am. The other is Sally Grimes, who is with Diageo now, and we were together at Cliff Bar. And to see her navigate a organization that was transitioning from being, family led to ultimately publicly led, I take a lot from her in terms of navigating some of the challenges that I work with now in a private equity company that is again transitioning from being family-led to now being more being the first professional growth engine sort of coming into the organization. There are a lot of ways in how she shows up as a leader that I use with me every day.
I love that. I love that. And I'm going to call out two leaders. I don't even know where the one is. Her name was Annette Angela Sante. I was 23 and I was in a domestic violence situation. And she showed me who I was and allowed me to step into something that I never thought possible.
Mm.
And she inspired me to think like a leader. She challenged the living shit out of me. She swore like an absolute pirate, which probably doesn't help me. But she was so real. And I'm so grateful to her. And then Wendy Phillips, who now works alongside me again, who gave me that opportunity and said, come on, you can do it. You're already doing it. And I think you and I in chorus here, be somebody who opens doors for other women so that
Yeah.
they can take an opportunity and live out their potential.
Well
I think
done.
we've had fun today. Thank you, Shaunte.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your inviting me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Now, for everybody out there, we're going to stream this. If we're going to put this on Spotify, it'll be out there. And it's obviously streamed on Facebook. So if you saw it there, thanks for showing up. Shaunte, much love to you. Thank you for being a voice with me to inspire other women that they could be all they can be. And for everyone who showed up, we appreciate it. And we're going to check out now and go and hopefully have lunch.
Fantastic. Thank you. Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye bye.
Bye.